Welcome to the Selling Show, where we unpack, repack, and break down exactly how top experts sell their ideas, their value, and their services. This is your host, David Newman, and you are in the right place if you want better clients, bigger deals, and higher fees. Sometimes you just need to hear the real deal. Well, my friends, today I have the OG, the alpha dog himself, Mr. Jim Ziegler, CSP, HSG. We're going to find out what all those letters mean in a moment, and author of the amazing new book, So You're a Professional Speaker. How come you're not rich yet? Jim, welcome to the show.
I've been looking forward to this for a long time. One of my best old friends, and not physically old, just a longevity of the time we've known each other.
Yes, absolutely. Well, so tell us a little bit, even before we get into the new book and sort of the speaking landscape 2024, 2025, 2026, and beyond. Tell us about your professional journey as a speaker, as an expert, and what were some interesting pit stops along the way that brought us to the present moment?
Well, the first speech I ever did that was a paid event, I had a roommate. We had a 2-bedroom apartment, singles complex, Jacksonville, Florida. I'm in my late 20s, almost to my 30s. I don't have a job. I'm just winging it. So he said, Jim, the rent's dead. The rent's due in the next couple of days. I said, well, I haven't got it. I've got to go find it. He said, well, what are you going to do? It's $2,500, And I said, well, I've got a car that is almost out of gas. So if I don't come back, I didn't make it. I came back. I said, well, I got $7,500. He said, well, what did you do? I said, I went to Independent Life Insurance, and I have an event, and the event is how to live with stress. And they're going to fly people. He said, well, what do you know about stress? I said, nothing. I have to go to the bookstore and buy a whole bunch of paperbacks about stress because they're flying people in from all over the country. Independent Life Insurance. I was just winging it. I just met with them and came back with a paid speech.
And then from there, you obviously developed a niche and a topic that you have become legendary for. Tell us how you got into the car dealership training business.
Okay, broke, divorced, angry. I hope anybody in this audience relates to that. Broke, divorced, angry, starting over again. It wasn't the first time I hit bottom. So I'm driving to Atlanta, and I'm going to be a car salesman because they got free cars. My credit was terrible. I mean, after the divorce, I was riding a motorcycle. I didn't even own a car. So here I am, a car salesman, and I had been a radio executive. I had been a disc jockey. I had been at the top at one point, and here I was at the very bottom of the bottom. So I'm going to sell cars until I can find a respectable job. But the third month in the industry, I made $4,500. David, I had never made $4,500 in 1976. 1976 as a radio executive, and that kind of money was unheard of. And as a car salesman, I set the record for the dealerships. I moved to Atlanta. I set more records. I became a manager, and somewhere along the way, I met my wife. She bought a car from me. I made ridiculous money on that deal. I laid her away. Then I ended up making every payment myself.
That very nice.
Yeah.
Exactly. You closed the deal on multiple levels.
But as a record setting manager, I became nationally known in the car business. You know, all humor aside, I became well known. I set records. I was doing numbers that nobody had done. I was inventing new things. I was creating, and somewhere in 1986, I left the car business and started doing seminars. That's where I had started years ago. Radio announcer. I had taught Dale Carnegie courses. You know, so I'm going back full circle. And I got a contract with Ford Motor Company, $1 million a year. And this was the Minority Auto Dealers program. Ford had made a commitment to Jesse Jackson. They were going to have 300 black-owned dealerships, and they had no concept how to recruit, train, develop African-American dealers. So I came back with $1 million to do that. And I was on a lot of the Ford training videos. I was teaching finance. I've had a number of facets, but I went from zero to, and this is where you and I sort of bumped into each other the first time. You know, I had 40 employees.
Oh, yes.
You remember 600 square feet of offices.
You had the building. Yes, for sure.
6,000 feet of offices.
Yeah.
Class A building, you know, first class everything.
Yeah.
And you know, we were making $7 million, you know, every time we turned around. All of a sudden, I was already $1 million a year speaker when I walked into I hadn't heard there was a speakers association.
Right.
I just bumped into them on the internet. You know, so many people reverse that trend. They start the speakers association hoping to make $1 million. I was making $1 million already when I walked in the door.
Yeah.
And I sort of thought you would be a CSP immediately. And I found out you had to wait 5 years.
Right, exactly. So CSP, for the civilians listening in, is the Certified Speaking Professional, which is the highest earned designation that you can get as a professional speaker. Jim has earned his, I've earned mine, and you too, if you put in 10 solid years of work, or maybe 5 years of work if you read Jim's book, and we'll get to that here in a moment. But I also want to go back to, you've always had, so you're making millions of dollars, and you're walking into these car dealerships, and they see this guy, this larger than life guy. And he's wearing bling. He's wearing jewelry. He's wearing gold-plated, diamond-studded Rolexes, not one, but maybe two at a time. Gigantic rings that are bigger and more valuable than Super Bowl rings. Tell us about, how did you embrace and really relish, and with a sense of humor, but you truly embraced, I'm going to get the toys, I'm going to show off the bling, I am rich, and I'm going to show you that I'm rich. How did, because you're doing it in a way that not a lot of people can do.
But it was humor.
Most people do it and they come off looking like a jerk. You do it and people go, I want to be Jim Ziegler. So how did you come to that?
It was humor. I understand. I mean, the jewelry, you know, I got $100,000 on my left hand, you know. Come on, you know, the Rolexes, the jewelry, the gold chains, you know, the baseball hat that says Alpha Dog, you know, all of that is put on.
And you mentioned this in the book, that Jim created this Jim Ziegler persona, the Alpha Dog persona, where you specifically talk about the bling, the jewelry, the rings, the bravado, the bluster. But it was good-natured, and I think people could tell that, you're not an arrogant jerk, that you're actually doing this to illustrate a point.
Well, it is. And the point is, Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali shot his mouth off, but he could knock him out. I'm the best there is. Bret Hart, the wrestler, the best there ever is, the best there ever was, the best there ever will be.
Yeah.
And that was the persona that I was creating with the car people.
Yeah.
I was training managers. I'm not a sales trainer. I'm a management trainer because I came from a management background.
Yeah.
And I dealt on the dealer level. I dealt on the highest level. And I was famous for turning these dealerships around. I could take a dealership that was making 500 units a month, and I'm making 1,000 units a month in sales. I did it over and over again, and I still do. It was a proven fact that the processes, the way that we did it, the whole thing, all my books in the car business. I've got a number of books in the car business. This is the first one I've ever written about the speaking business.
Yes.
And one thing about the speaking profession, so many people, their whole persona is making money off of other speakers.
Yeah.
I never wanted to make money from other speakers. I see so many people that's their whole game plan is to make money from other speakers. No, that's not me. Now, I do sell a book, but I don't care. The book, I didn't know how much the book cost. It's on Amazon. Check it out.
Right. Absolutely. Before we leave the car business, because I do want to transition to the book and the whole laying out the real deal in the speaking business. But you also, to your credit, as the car business changed, as the car business evolved, as new challenges, new problems came up, you were one of the first guys to say, hey, internet car sales, you guys think that you're losing your lunch because no one's walking into the dealership anymore. Talk about the internet car sales programs and the internet car sales boot camps and how you helped your entire population of car dealers really enter the internet era and blow it up successfully.
Many times I had to reinvent myself.
Yes.
And teach others how to reinvent themselves. Because nothing remains the way it used to be. And it's changing again today. And to stay ahead of it, to be on the crest of the wave, it always was something I had to reinvent myself. I had to reinvent the business. So many times, and I'm 77 years old. I don't mind, sharing that with people. I've got an underwear older than you. I think I'm wearing it right now. But I'm 77 years old, and I'm teaching college classes to young people in the car business. Northwood University is the only 4-year college in the world that teaches car sales or car management. And I am a professor at that. I teach management and finance management. I teach 2 classes to seniors at Northwood University in Michigan.
Yeah. And
that's all on the internet. That's all like we're doing right now. But it's so interesting that here I am, a high school graduate, teaching a class on the internet.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Are you loving this interview as much as I am? Holy smokes. Hey, you know what this reminds me of? There's a fantastic sales book that you got to get your hands on right here, right now. It's called Do It Selling. How do I know it's great? Well, I wrote it and you need to read it. Pop over right now to doitselling.com.
Now, back to our interview.
Let's jump in to the book. And you mentioned a moment ago that speakers selling to other speakers, that was never your goal. That's not really why we're doing this. You say in the beginning of the book, kids, I got nothing to sell you. There's no coaching program. There's no VIP days. There's no nothing. So I'm going to tell you the real deal. I guess my first question, Jim, what inspired you to write this book, and what were some indicators that this book needed to be written?
Well, first of all, my ego, I don't mind telling people I have a huge ego, please. There's several kinds of people in the Speakers Association. There are introverts and introverts who say they're not introverts. I'm a show off. I mean, do you remember the movie Smokey and the Bandit?
Yes.
Burt Reynolds.
Sure.
In the very beginning, Sally Field had jumped in his car, his Trans Am, and T-tops, big bird on the hood. She's wearing a wedding dress, and she is a runaway bride, and they're talking and she said, "What do you do?" And he said, I show off. That's what I do. I love showing off. And being a professional speaker, I have a lot of fun doing what we do. I'm not the richest speaker you've ever seen. I'm not. I don't even charge the most. But I'm a $10,000, $20,000 speaker. And I know people make a lot more than that. But there are other avenues to make money in the speaking business than keynotes.
Amen.
And so many people are aiming for that keynote speech. That is the golden fleece. There are so many ways that I have made money other than the keynotes. And I've done thousands of keynotes in the car business. And I have one thing in the car business that I do that very few, if none, no other speakers make. I can make a claim. 100% of the people in my audience can hire me. When I'm doing a keynote speech for a state dealers association, I have been the opening keynote for 98 state dealer conventions.
Good Lord. Wow.
I mean, that is the opening keynote speaker.
Right.
Not the speaker on the third day.
Right.
The opening keynote speaker. People, we throw that term around, keynote speaker. There's only one keynote speaker in any speech.
Yes. And you make that point in the book, too, very eloquently.
Yeah, there's only one keynote speaker. That is the opening. The speech. I was the opening keynote speaker for the Australian Auto Dealers Convention in Brisbane, Australia. Only one. I mean, there were 20 speakers on that stage, but I was the only true keynote speaker.
Right.
And we throw that term around. Everybody's a keynote speaker. I used to hear I shared the stage with Zig Ziegler. You didn't share the stage with him. You were day number 3. He was the opening keynote. Quit it. Right. I shared the stage. No, you didn't.
Right. Exactly.
Get off yourself.
Well, one of the points that you make in the book is you could compete for all of these keynote spots, or you could create your own event. You could own the gate. You keep all the money, and you make a hell of a lot more from running your own conference or running your own seminar than you will from a single keynote. How did you make that transition to creating your own public seminars and public conferences?
Well, actually, I had done it before the car business. I was teaching Dale Carnegie sales classes as a part-time job when I was a radio advertising salesperson in Jacksonville, Florida. So I came full circle, to doing conference events. But I found out that when you compete for a keynote speech, say you win, say you are the person that is hired by the meeting planner, all of a sudden you got to pay them a commission. That speech is the last speech you're going to do for that event, and then you're starting all over again. When I do an event, I keep all the money. I determine what date that event's going to be on. I hire the hotel. I do all of the peripheral things. My wife is an accountant. When I met my wife, she was an accountant, and I could make a lot of money. I've always been able to make a lot of money, but I don't know how to count it or manage it.
Right, exactly.
I mean, I wasted money. So my wife was such a balance. She could work with the hotels. She could do all the things. So when we started with Ford Motor Company, one of the first things I did was I did a finance seminar, and we had 17 attendees. And I was charging $500 a person at a Sheraton hotel. Only 2 of those people were paid. 15 of those people were friends of mine, so I could get a good photo op.
Nice.
But we started building the reputation. We went to Destin, Florida, and I holed up in a hotel with a rented Selectric typewriter, and I wrote the first 2 books: Automotive Finance, Automotive Sales Management. So I wrote the textbook. And by the way, those books are still selling online.
Yeah.
And the kind of money I'm making on those books, it's phenomenal. I've got a finance book that I've rewritten that book 15, 20 times through the years. Now, remember, this book was written in 1986.
Yeah.
It's a download on my website. We're selling it for $75. I still sell 5 or 6 of those a month. I mean, I've been selling that book for years and years. It just keeps generating money. And it's crazy because I've finally ventured out to Amazon, but I've sold most of my books. I've got a book called The Prosperity Equation. I have sold 35,000 copies of that book, and most of it's downloads.
Yeah.
Most people, they publish a book and they got 5,000 of them in their garage and they're trying to give them away. I always make money on whatever I do, and I try to teach speakers that. I'll give you an example. There's I'm not going to name him, but there's a member, an officer of the Georgia Speakers Association, National Speakers Association, Georgia, and I'm trying to help him get launched to a higher level. And I gave him one of my books, and I asked him, I said, "Did you actually just implement some of the things that are in the book?" He said, "Well, I'm trying to." I said, "A try's a lie. Let's talk about it." Page 3 of my book. Page 3 of my book talks about how you can go and make money from the government agencies. Let me see where that is. Hang on a second. Here it is. The U.S. Department of Commerce. They have a website. and I've used this many, many times. U.S. Department of Commerce, and then you scroll down to events and meetings. It will give you hundreds, maybe thousands of meetings that are being held, registered by the U.S. Department of Commerce, and it'll actually tell you who the people are that belong to these organizations, how to get in touch with them. It shows them a photograph of them, their phone number, and then it scroll down. You can get the number of events they have this year and what the events are titled. I mean, why do I want to pay a meeting planner when I can do that myself?
Sure, of course. Well, that was my next question, actually, my next series of questions, because there's a great, not only on page 3, but there's an entire chapter on getting booked and getting clients. Where do you see new speakers sort of fumble and stumble, or in this case, lack of implementation? So I guess the question, Jim, what don't they know and what don't they do that could get them these bookings much faster?
Well, let's talk about the book.
Okay.
One thing I found out, speakers' books are genuinely an event to get you somewhere else. If the speaker's book is designed to sell you something else. The original book that most speakers are publishing online is designed to sell you a conference or a bigger book. I mean, there's no information in most of these books on the do's and don'ts of how to actually do it, because they want something from you.
Right.
Excuse me.
There's the coaching program, the boot camp, the online course, the get rich quick as $1 million speaker in 17 minutes. Your book, because there's no agenda, there's no back end, so to speak, by design, because you don't want to sell the speakers, you're putting everything into the book.
It's all there.
It's all there.
Are you loving this interview as much as I am? Holy smokes. Hey, you know what this reminds me of? There's a fantastic sales book that you got to get your hands on right here, right now. It's called Do It Selling. How do I know it's great? Well, I wrote it and you need to read it. Pop over right now to doitselling.com. Now, back to our interview.
Let's talk about my profession. I started out, I had 40 employees, 6,000 square feet of offices. My classroom in my office would seat 100 people. My employees were filling it up. We were selling seminars once a month for finance managers and for sales managers. We were putting 100 people a month in each of those seminars.
Yeah.
At $1,500 a person. So we're talking the 80s and the early 90s, or all through the 90s. So anyway, all of a sudden we're rocking and rolling, and all of a sudden, 2008, the U.S. economy crashed. My wife and I were in London at the time, and we were buying a franchise for the British version of Facebook. We were going to bring it to the United States. I had just written a mammoth check for British Facebook. And all of a sudden, October 15th, I'll never forget the date, October 15th, 2008, the U.S. economy crashed. So my wife and I, we forfeited the deposit. We came home, we shut down the offices, laid off all the employees. And here we are starting over again.
Right.
And we had lost a lot of money. We weren't broke by any means, but we were bleeding money out of every artery.
Yeah.
So we weren't going to lose any more money. We still had substantial money. We were far from broke,
Yeah.
but we weren't going to lose any more. So what am I going to do? 2009, we're having to reinvent ourselves again. So now we don't have the big conference. All of a sudden, we start looking around and we see that we can do conferences. And the conferences were on internet. It was called the Internet Battle Plan.
Yes.
And you remember that?
I do.
The Internet Battle Plan. We did oh my God, 28 of them. We did 28 Internet Battle Plans and 4 or 5 sales manager battle plans. So we did over 30 something of these events. 250 attendees, 20 speakers, 20 sponsors, hotel ballrooms. And by the way, all that's in the book, how to produce something like that. Very similar to the Speakers Association influence. Very similar.
Yeah.
But 250 attendees. We were charging the attendees anywhere from $750 to $1,500, depending on which event it was. And 3/4 of the people in the audience are paying that. We were making deals with the others and, bunching things.
Of course.
Not everybody paid full price, but still in all, the sponsors were paying upwards of $20,000. 20 speakers, 20 sponsors. And we didn't pay, the only speaker I ever paid was Rory Vaden. That was the only speaker I ever paid, because most of the speakers on stage were the sponsors.
Yeah, interesting. Right.
So,
sure.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, because and I just want to tell people everything that Jim is talking about, and actually a whole lot more, is in the book. We're talking about stagecraft is in the book. Stories, how to use PowerPoint. Should you use PowerPoint? Getting booked, conferences. Conferences and seminars and self-produced events, you will never see a book that has more detail, from food and beverage, room block, what to negotiate, how to negotiate, audio visual, creating a sensory experience for people. So I just got to hand it to you. Everything, it's like the old spaghetti sauce commercial. Everything is in there. Because everything is in there, as we're landing the plane here, what one overarching concept would you love to leave with people about the speaking industry, the harsh truths that they need to be successful in the speaking industry? How would you encapsulate the one big takeaway idea if we're to leave people with one big concept?
There are more than one way. There's more than one way to make income in the Speaking Association. Keynotes are great, but that is one-dimensional. Producing your own events, and by the way, I'm producing events again. We had to re-event because I had cancer, and my cancer followed by COVID. All of a sudden, now I'm doing events on the internet. Now I'm doing conferences on the internet. I'm once again 77 years old. Speakers, reinvent yourself, and don't take advice on how to make money from people that aren't making any money.
Oh my gosh, and how? And I'll add one more to the mix, because it's based on the ideas that you share in the book. If you own the gate, you own your fate. Right? Don't rely on other people to put money in your pocket. It is up to you, people. I love it. Jim Ziegler, how can people get in touch and stay in touch with you? Website, where can they get the book? We'll put all of this in the show notes. Where can we send people?
Okay, first of all, Amazon, James A. Ziegler, Ziegler. I come up over 4 million times on Amazon. You can't miss me. 4 million references to me on Amazon.
I love it.
I mean, there's so many frauds out there that, excuse me, you can check me out. ZieglerSuperSystems.com. Ziegler, Ziegler, ZieglerSuperSystems.com. All my information, everything is there. My credentials are there. You know, how many people don't publish their credentials? Please check me out.
Yes. And then where can people get Alpha Dog hats? We want hats, Jim.
I don't sell hats.
You don't sell Alpha Dog hats?
No, I mean, I'm not here to milk you for nickels and dimes. No. I mean, excuse me. I have enough money.
Very nice. Okay,
I don't
so
want to
no
make
hats,
my grandchildren any more wealthy. You know,
That's right.
I'm trying to help you.
This is totally amazing. Get the book. The link is in the show notes, as well as to Jim's primary website. The book, again, is So You're a Professional Speaker. How come you're not rich yet? If you read the book, and no, it's not enough to read the book. If you implement what's in the book, you will be richer much faster than if you don't read the book and implement bupkis. So, Jim Ziegler, you are a rock star and a legend. Thank you for being with us.
I love you, big guy.
And that wraps up another episode of The Selling Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, tell a friend, go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thesellingshow.com. See you next time.